You've been told your whole life to be strong, to not break, to keep it all together no matter what, as if holding yourself tight and pretending everything is fine is the only way to be respected, to be loved, to be seen as worthy. But what if that very grip, that constant holding, is the thing slowly tearing you apart, keeping you from truly living, truly breathing, truly feeling alive in the world? What if the strength you've been taught to chase is actually the mask, the armor, the illusion, and real strength, the kind that lasts, the kind that heals, the kind that liberates, is found not in resistance or control or perfection, but in the quiet, deep act of surrender, of letting go of the fight, and finally allowing yourself to meet life exactly as it is, not as you've been taught to shape it. We are raised to believe that strength is found in power and toughness, in control, in the ability to push through anything with a straight face. And yet when we look around, we see people exhausted, disconnected, numb, anxious, trying to keep up with a version of themselves that was never real to begin with, because they're afraid that if they stop performing, they'll fall apart, afraid that if they soften, they'll disappear, afraid that if they're truly seen, they won't be loved, and yet that fear itself is the very wall separating them from the love and peace they're starving for. You don't need to be strong in the way the world taught you. That kind of strength is brittle, rigid, always one moment away from cracking under the pressure, and real power, the kind that moves mountains and heals hearts, comes not from the clenched fist, but from the open hand, not from the hardened heart, but from the heart that dares to stay soft in a world that keeps trying to harden it. Imagine the river. It doesn't force itself to flow. It doesn't scream to be noticed. It doesn't resist the rocks in its way, and yet over time it carves canyons and nourishes forests and brings life wherever it moves, not because it tries, but because it trusts the shape of the earth, trusts its own nature, trusts that there is a wisdom and softness that the mind can't always understand, but the soul recognizes instantly. The ego wants you to keep performing, to keep pretending, to keep chasing strength as an identity, because it knows that as long as you believe you need to be strong to be okay, it stays in control. It tells you not to cry, not to feel, not to slow down, not to admit you're tired, because the moment you stop clenching and allow yourself to be human, the illusion of control begins to fall away, and in its place something far deeper, far more real begins to emerge. You are not here to be perfect or impressive or invulnerable. You are here to be real, to be whole, to be awake in this experience of being alive. And that doesn't mean never breaking. It means realizing that the breaking is part of the blooming. The falling apart is where new life begins, and what feels like weakness is often the doorway to your truest power, the kind that doesn't come and go with your moods or your circumstances, but lives deep beneath it all. We've confused armor with protection and silence with strength. But true strength is found in your willingness to feel without turning away, to speak without hiding, to love without needing to be right, and to let go of who you think you should be in order, to fully embody who you already are beneath the noise, because that version of you, the raw one, the honest one, the one who still feels wonder and ache and hope even after everything, that is the most powerful presence you could ever offer the world. You don't need to be unbreakable to be whole. You need to be present. And presence doesn't require perfection. It only requires honesty. The courage to sit with yourself as you are, not as you wish to be, to meet your fear and your grief and your longing with tenderness instead of judgment, to realize that nothing you feel is wrong, and that allowing it is not weakness. It's the beginning of becoming fully alive. Softness has always been strength, but we've been too busy surviving to notice, because surviving teaches you to guard, to hustle, to push, but thriving begins when you allow yourself to rest. When you recognize that you are not here to keep proving your worth, you are here to remember it, to reclaim the part of you that knows you don't have to do anything to deserve peace, that your worth was never in question, only your belief in it. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't pushing through, it's sitting down, placing everything you've been carrying on the ground beside you, and finally saying, I don't need to carry this anymore, because it's not the holding on that keeps you safe, it's the letting go that sets you free. You weren't born to be a performance, you were born to be a presence. And the world doesn't need another mask. It needs your realness, your depth, your humanity, because it's in your softness, not your armor, that others feel safe to soften too. And that is how we begin to heal, not by trying harder, but by remembering who we are without the pressure. You don't need to be stronger, you need to be here in this moment, fully, honestly, completely, and from that space everything begins to shift, because the freedom you've been searching for doesn't live in effort, it lives in surrender, in the quiet courage of allowing yourself to be seen, not as someone impressive, but as someone real. Real strength is not a performance, it's a quiet knowing that nothing about you needs to be fixed in order to be loved. That even in your mess, even in your fears, even in your softest, most uncertain moments, there's nothing wrong with you, and there never was, because love doesn't need to understand you to hold you. It just needs you to be willing to be held. It takes courage to unlearn the stories that told you your softness was a flaw, that emotion was weakness, that rest was laziness. It takes even more courage to live from a place that says, I trust what I feel, and to show up in a world full of noise with the gentle strength of someone who has stopped running and started listening, because listening is where transformation begins. We were taught to survive by shutting down, by tightening, by performing our worth instead of resting in it. But there comes a point when you realize that survival is no longer enough, that your soul is asking for more, not in the way of achievement, but in the way of depth, connection, meaning, and that kind of fulfillment only comes when you stop living from the outside in and begin living from the inside out. So many of us are afraid to stop pretending because we think the truth of who we are will scare people away. But the opposite is true. Your truth is what draws the right people to you. Your softness is what reminds others of their own. Your honesty creates space where others can breathe, and that is not weakness, that is sacred. And the more you show up like that, the more you realize you were never too much. You were just never in the right rooms. And maybe the reason softness scares us is because we know, deep down, that once we surrender to it, there's no going back. We will no longer be able to live from the shallow surface of performance and control, and we will have to face the beauty and the ache of being fully alive. And yet, that's the point. Not to escape life, but to meet it fully, to let it shape us, to let it move through us, like the river that carves its way home, not through strength, but through surrender.